New April events at Authentically Us. Thursday, April 3rd, dealing with negativity for women who are coming out. Thursday, April 10th, healing after your catalyst relationship. Thursday, April 17th, spirituality and faith in the coming out journey. Thursday, April 24th, dating workshop for late blooming lesbians. Tuesday, April 29th, speed friending. For more information, visit the link in the podcast description or join Authentically Us at annemariezanzal.com.
Today, we are diving into a big one, negativity. It creeps in, it lingers, and for so many of us coming out, it feels like a constant companion. But guess what? We don't have to let it define us.
Absolutely. And hey, we all experience negative thoughts, but the trick is learning how to deal with them in a way that doesn't keep us stuck. So today, we're talking about how to name it, reframe it, and release it. Hey, queer friends and allies. Welcome to Season 6 of Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA+ stories. Here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzal.
And welcome back to another episode of Coming Out and Beyond. It is your favorite LGBTQIA+ coaches, Anne-Marie's.
Hey, it's Barbara Rowlandson. So good to see you. Welcome back.
We are so excited to have you here today as we talk about negativity. But first, let's do a little check-in. Barb has I don't know if her power is back on, but it has been, is it?
Anne-Marie, before we started this podcast, what song did I play for you on the YouTube? I got the power. No,
God, I didn't even make that connection. I'm so slow.
Power. Finally, 10 days no power, and we are back online. So I'm thrilled. Pioneer living is way overrated.
Well, it was so funny. Barb was in the great Toronto storm of 2025, where she lost power for 10 days because they had a huge ice storm in Canada. Mm-hmm. And then I just had a tornado here on Saturday, and I lost power for 24 hours. And now Barb and I are going to become doomsday preppers. Follow our new podcast, Doomsday Dykes.
I'm in. I'm listening to that. Yeah, I'm going full prepper after this. And you know what's interesting is we're talking about negativity, and really easy when the power goes out for the first day or two, fully negative. This is terrible. This is awful. And then you know what? It was just like, well, time to start coping now. I guess I'm a pioneer now.
It's like, what if you don't want to cope? Sometimes I just don't want to cope. I'm like, my plate is full. I don't want to deal with this now.
When it's 10 days, life goes on. I mean, life can't stop. It stopped for a little while thinking, oh, maybe the power will come back on. No such luck, because almost 500,000 homes were impacted by the ice storm. So,
well, we'll get that podcast in the pipeline and watch for it. Doomsday Dykes.
We need some good butches to,
I know. We do need some good butches, but we have to have real butches, like not pretend ones like my wife. We call her a Band-Aid butch because she can take it off and put it on. Take it off, put it on. My wife is more of masculine as center. She looks more butch than she actually is.
Okay.
Like a lot of femme butch dynamics, I am definitely the type A in our relationship. Well, she's more of a type B, or maybe
easygoing.
You ever see that video of the little kid skiing and she's saying to whoever's taping, you are more like a go-getter, do things kind of person, but I'm more of a lay-arounder kind of person. That's my wife.
Just taking things at a slow Southern pace.
Yes, she is. So let's talk about everybody's favorite topic today, negativity. So we are going to talk about negativity today. Can you think about a time recently when negativity took over your thoughts? How did it show up? And more importantly, how did it make you feel? And that is the question that we're going to ask you today to ponder on why we have this discussion around negativity. So the first thing we're going to talk about is name it to tame it, or how negativity shows up. How does it show up for us, Barb?
Well, one of the ways that it can really show up is through rumination and being unable to escape what amounts to a cycle of negative thoughts. And those negative thoughts can be any manner of thought. You asked earlier for an example. I'll give you a great example. Now, this isn't recent, but when I broke up with my catalyst, or I was approaching breakup with my catalyst, I can remember thinking, this isn't going to work out. I can't live with her anymore. I certainly can't go back to home where my husband and kids are. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And I remember going for a walk around the neighborhood, and I remember sort of self-casting myself or characterizing myself as a stray dog. And what that really was self-victimization. That's a common one. A lot of people will lean into, it's very common to lean into self-victimization.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, later on, when I started to challenge those beliefs, it was like, you know what? I'm not a stray lost dog that nobody wants. There are plenty of people who love me and care about me, and I will find a place to go and move forward. It's just not easy right now.
Right. And, I think negativity also manifests, it's like that was really self doubt, right?
Mhm,
And also fear,
mhm.
and also shame and also guilt. And what I mean by shame and guilt is when you are first coming out and you may have moved out of your marital home and you're living with somebody, whether it's a catalyst or someone you've been in a relationship for a while, or somebody that is your first relationship after you come out, then there's sometimes shame and guilt attached to it. Meaning, like, I am doing something wrong. I am wrong for doing this. I am wrong for pursuing my own happiness. I should be putting my family's happiness for first. Or guilt. Oh my gosh, I'm so guilty that I am putting my spouse or my kids through this time of transition. So a lot of time we see negativity manifest itself a lot in people who are coming out, because it also has negativity also has a huge impact on not only coming out but our relationships and our personal growth.
Uh, you know, it's interesting. It's like, I think when you talk about shame and guilt, and a lot of times, like narratives about that around it, shame and guilt can fall into like one of two categories and not mutually exclusive either. A single person can experience both of these things.
Hmm.
That anecdote that I just shared was
Hmm.
about not being enough. I'm not enough. That's like that deep, dark, inner core, scariest feelings, core belief that maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm not lovable. But there's
Hmm.
another side to that, right?
And the side that for me is that maybe I'm too much. Maybe I want too much. Maybe I have too many needs. Maybe my longing and my belief that there's something else, something greater out there for me is simply not true. And I just must accept what is given to me.
There was a time, just share a quick story about a time when negativity really impacted me. Was I was working in events for the community I used to live in, and there were a lot of people who didn't agree with how I was managing the events. And it really felt like it was me against the world. And here's a clue. Anytime there's like really extreme thinking, whether it's I always, I never, it's all or nothing, me against the world. Usually that's a clue that's not true. But at the time, it really felt true. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I had a similar experience with that when I was running my Facebook group, which was for later in life people, and it's a very long story, but quite soon after this group was integrated with another group with another group that came over to stay in my group, I had some people react to how I was running the group, and it was absolutely devastating to me. Like, not being able to get out of the bed, devastating to me. And, some people around me, like, I was like, it's only a Facebook group. Why are you getting so upset? And I'm like, but I'm pouring my heart and soul into this work. And people's negativity was deeply affecting me. And so it made me feel really, really shitty. it made me feel depressed, but it also activated some of my core wounds, which is I'm not good enough. I know I said I'm too much, but there's also other pieces of me that used to say, I'm not good enough. So it felt very, very familiar of my childhood situation where I am trying to please the adults in my life. And no matter what I do, I can't please them. And I also was like really interesting too for me, Barb, with this experience. After all the hubbubalub was all over, we may have lost like 100 people in the group, which was fine. But what was really interesting is I only could listen to the negative voices.
Mm-hmm.
During that time,
Mm-hmm.
I had so many people reach out to me and say, keep doing what you're on doing. Don't listen to them, blah, 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 blah. But I only could hear the negative voices.
Sometimes you hear that from performers, right? They'll be on stage and everybody's enjoying the show, but the only person they can focus on is that one guy who's sitting there with his arms folded.
Right. And I think it has something to do. This is where it goes really deep here is the negative messages fed my negative image of myself, negative narrative in my head. So it was supporting it. And the positive messages that I received were dismissed because they were wrong.
Right.
Only the negative people were right. And the people that were being positive, I completely ignored. And, it took me, when that happened to me, that took me a lot of therapy to go to go through it because it wasn't about the Facebook group, you know. The Facebook group triggered me to going into some old wounds and also old ways of thinking and old beliefs. And so it also helped me get rid of some of my negative thought patterns as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it also taught me how to run a Facebook group because I shut that shit down now.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
also too, if somebody's very negative and really going after me or somebody else in the group, I just kick them out. I have no patience for it anymore. And it's really about being thoughtful about the needs of the entire group, not just one person. It's not silencing any voices. It's like if I have this negative person saying all kinds of bad things to a group of women that are nervous and scared and overwhelmed, and it's just not good for the entire group. So it was a really huge learning experience for me, but it was also pretty painful.
And a good reminder, too, as I'm listening to you retell that story, is like, it's a good reminder that opposite things can exist in the same place and still be true. Both be true. Some people loved the Facebook group and some people didn't love it.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
now your takeaway is okay, the people who can love it can stay, and the people who don't love it, be on your way. Goodbye.
It's so funny. The other day, I got somebody, we were advertising something, and I got somebody being really, really negative. Like, is this for all queer women? Are you excluding trans people? And like, if anybody does 1 ounce of research on what we do, they'll know that we always say trans, cis, and non-binary folks. But you know what I did? Blocked them. I'm like, you go and do your research before you start making all kinds of negative comments because I'm very clear about who we help, and we help cis, trans, and non-binary women. We are fully supportive of all women. But you know what? I'm not going to deal with some troll. And a lot of times those trolls are actually not trans or non-binary folks. They're
Mhm.
people that are pretending to be them.
Right.
And so I just blocked them. It was like, okay, I'm done with you. Because there's 8 billion people in the world. This is what I learned a long time ago about coaching. There is 8 billion people in the world. We are never going to serve everybody. We are not for everybody. So we keep our message clear for the people that we do serve.
Mhm.
And that is how you run a good coaching program. And we also protect the people that we are serving too. Because again, somebody who's just coming out and sees all those negative messages on a social media post, I mean, that scares them. They think, oh, well, I can't do this, So it's better to just really be thoughtful about how to protect your community, how to stay on message, and how not to just get distracted by the riffraff.
And how to preserve your peace.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, why? Where do you think our negative thoughts come from? Why we believe them and where do they come from? I think there's a bunch of different reasons.
Well, I think our conditioning
Hmm.
is one of those places. What
Hmm.
we've been taught, our past experiences, which help to reinforce those things that we're taught. I think we experience a lot of pressure from society to be in a certain way. And if we don't conform to it, then we're bad. So, yeah, I think those can be powerful influencers.
I think that we get conditioned in certain way as women.
Hmm.
And so a lot of times our negative thoughts about being women, or for example, being a good mother in quotation, comes from are the conditioning and the way people we have been taught for a very long time. So we have negative thoughts based on what we've been taught to do as women. For example, let's just use the one a good mother always puts her family first.
Right.
That is conditioning. That is what most of us have learned. And then we have past experiences because a lot of times we have in the past put
Mhm.
our family first over our own needs. And then as women, there is tremendous societal pressure. Women are either virgins or whores. And so there is tremendous societal pressure for like they put moms on a pedestal, but man, do they try to tear her down all the time.
It's interesting. I was just having this conversation with my sister the other day, who's a very high performing person. She's a senior vice president in her company, and she was talking about, ways of behaving to succeed for women and not be characterized as a bitch. And that their rules in business are different for women than they are for men. So where men are taught to be assertive and to speak up and make themselves heard and to take credit, for women it's a very different experience if you want to succeed.
And also, to the same rules don't apply.
Right.
Right? The same rules that men have don't apply to the women. And it's so funny that, your sister is writing an article about trying to, about being a bitch. I mean, ever since I was in the business world, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, I've heard that same story. I've
Mhm.
heard that that could have been written 35 years ago. When are we going to get past that, where women are expected to be nice and not take credit, expected to yield the floor to men, expected to do all these things and to fight, to continue to fight for that seat at the table? I'm like, I'm so tired of it, Barb. Like, I mean, as I get older and older, I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, let's
Mhm.
move on. So,
Yes.
for when we have negative thoughts, one of the most powerful thing you can do is to reframe.
Mhm.
Reframe, reframe, reframe. So, shifting from a place of self-judgment to one of our three pillars that we constantly undergird all our programs with is self kindness. Is there a way that you can shift from self judgment to self kindness? So,
Mhm.
if you could rewrite a negative thought you're struggling with, what would it sound like? Try softening. So, I'm going to try I'm not enough into I am learning and growing every day. So, with your negative thought, Barb, how can you reframe that?
Well, let's take an example from the anecdote I told earlier about the stray dog and like, I'm not lovable. Another really vulnerable core belief that a lot of people experience is that they're not enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough to be loved. And something I would encourage listeners to do, if that is one of your narratives that you experience, is first of all, recognizing the extremeness in the language. Because remember, if something starts with I never or I always, it's probably not true, right? Look for the evidence. Is it true that I'm not lovable? Or are
Mhm.
there people in the world who do love me? Well, chances are you can come up with a good list of people who really love and care about you. So it's not you're entirely defined by whether, one person doesn't care about you or one person doesn't love you. Even though you might feel unlovable in that moment, and maybe you are unlovable to that person because they are choosing not to have a relationship with you, it doesn't mean that the whole world sees it that way. right?
Mm-hmm.
And talking to yourself like a friend.
I spoke about this before a little bit over the years on the podcast about thinking that I am too much, too emotional, too intense, too straightforward, pun intended. But now I try to remind myself is that my too muchness, my intensity is what lets me help people in this world and also get shit done. My you know, I think this is has to do with being with an emotionally unavailable man for a long time
Okay.
because he always found me to be too much. I had very big emotions. I was emotional. I was intense. I was looking for something from him that he just was unable to give. Plus, he was a man and I needed to be with a woman. What's really interesting now that I've had this experience of being out for a while, my wife never says I'm too much. She never says I'm too emotional or too intense. And so that gives me the opportunity to remind myself that my intenseness is one of my greatest strengths.
I love that. I love that. What a great reframe, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
You're turning something that's like a perceived deficiency into a superpower.
Right. And reframing takes practice, but I'm going to tell you it's worth it. And this is where mindfulness comes into play because in Lotus Group Coaching, in Authentically Us, our three foundational pillars are self kindness, shared common humanity, and mindfulness. So, mindfulness helps me to see when I am talking really negatively to myself. And that's why I love practicing meditation and mindfulness because when I hear myself in negative self talk, I can learn to rewrite the narrative I have been telling myself. So let's have a little fun here, Barb. What are some of the things that we hear our community talk about all the time in their coming out experience with negative self talk?
Oh boy, pick from a buffet.
A couple of them. I am destroying my family. How would you reframe that?
I would reframe that as I am changing my,
How about I'm blowing up my life?
I am changing my life, or I'm constructing a better life for
Hmm.
myself and my family.
Or I am trying to figure out what's best for me. And sometimes that requires change within my life.
Right.
All right, throw one at me.
I am not honoring my commitment to my husband and my kids.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this now. This is going to be a little hard. My relationship with my husband and my relationship with my children are two different things. I will forever be committed to my children and their best welfare. And my relationship with my husband is going to change, but I will always be committed to him as the father of my children. Phew!
Good
Would
one.
you change that a different way?
Well, something I remember kind of having a reframe on this personally and thinking people are allowed to change. What was good for me back then when I made a promise to marry is no longer good for me now.
I am being selfish.
Okay. So reframe for I am being selfish might be I am stepping into my authentic identity that is more aligned with what I need and who I am.
Hmm. All right, here's a big one we hear a lot.
Okay, lay it on me.
Okay. This is a catalyst one. Catalyst expert. I am a horrible person for falling in love with my catalyst.
I am a human being having a human experience.
Hmm. Hmm. I cheated on my husband with my catalyst. This is one we hear all the time.
I am a human being having a human experience. Very much looking forward though to talking about that in the Catalyst workshop that's coming up this Thursday. And hopefully this will air after the Catalyst workshop is over,
No,
but I'm sure we'll do this over again.
Yeah, it will air after the Catalyst workshop. Yeah, we'll do the Catalyst workshop again. Absolutely. So one more. Let me think about one. I'm a bad person because I'm gay.
Wow. A reframe for that one might be gay people have always existed and always will exist. It predates morality and religion, and there's always going to be a percentage of humans on Earth who are gay, and I am one of them, and that actually makes me kind of special.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to do this one as well, is that I'm going to go to hell because I'm gay. Um, I have heard that so many times, and I would like to reframe that as how can I reconcile my belief in a loving God with the existence of hell? And so, if we take the idea of hell off the table, then you don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
And I know so many times with people who are coming out, especially those from conservative religious traditions, there's a lot of existential angst around coming out. And they're worried about their soul, their family's soul. But that
Mhm.
is just a man made tale.
Mhm.
And if you believe, for example, let's say you're a Christian and you believe in the work, believing in the teachings of Jesus Christ, Jesus never mentioned gay people, never
Exactly.
mentioned trans people. Jesus didn't care. Like, if that was important to Jesus, I think he would have mentioned it a couple of times.
You would
And
think, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And, each religious tradition has a different take on what it means to be gay. And I'm not knowledgeable enough to be able to say what other religions believe about it. But just remember that religion is set through the filter of human experience and human language. And humans are homophobic, they're racist, they are all kinds of things. And so I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who has a in that is very, very controlling, and I'm not quite sure if she realizes that it not yet or not. And I said, just because they say it, he says this, doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
You have the law on your side. And
Mhm.
because she was saying that she wasn't going to get any alimony or anything. And I'm like, that, yeah, sorry, you're in a 50-50 state. You'll get alimony. Go see a lawyer. Go see a lawyer. And so sometimes reframing our negative cycles, like, for example, the woman I was speaking to yesterday, my husband does not know everything about the divorce process in the state of California.
Mhm.
I will see a lawyer to see what's best for me, because perseverating and worrying and having negative thoughts about your divorce process really, really is a pattern of behavior. Go see a lawyer, go do some Googling, do something to see what the laws are in your state or country, because they're not all the same across the board. Please do that, because that can eliminate a negative thought pattern.
Totally.
Although sometimes we're so used to negative thought patterns, it feels normal. And
Mhm.
so it's like, it's our comfort zone, and it's what is the word I use? It's dysfunctional, but it's our
Mhm.
dysfunction and we're comfortable
Yes.
in it.
Yeah. Yeah. No one was ever harmed by gaining more information. And just because you go and get some information about what it means to divorce in your state or your province or wherever you are, it doesn't, first of all, it doesn't mean you have to get divorced if you don't want to. It doesn't mean you have to act on that information right now, right? It's just information. Who was ever harmed by gaining more knowledge? Nobody.
Absolutely. And even exploring all of this, there's nothing wrong with doing this. This is something that you're just gaining more information to. So, getting rid of negativity, some of the ways of letting it go is one of the ways is getting more information. But, I'm a very deeply spiritual person, and I do believe in the power of ritual for letting go. If you're somebody who likes to write letters, can you write a letter to your negativity or a piece of your
Ooh,
negativity and let
love
it
that.
go? Any other ideas, Barb?
Yeah, I really love that idea of writing a letter and then maybe creating a little ritual around it as
Mm-hmm.
well. Now, you
Mm-hmm.
can write a letter to your negativity or write a letter to your partner and say all the things you want to say or to anybody, really. It doesn't mean anybody else ever has to see it. You can, and people like ritual. It can help to close the loop, right? So,
Yeah, it feels very comforting sometimes.
right, right. So burn the letter afterwards if you want, or put it away somewhere where you don't have to look at it for a really long time. Do something with it. Send it off. I know at one point something I did was to put my intention in a rock, like in a stone that I found on the beach, and put my negativity and my hard feelings and my suffering into it and really thought about it and meditated on it and then threw that thing in the lake and then turned
Yeah, that
right
must have been
back around
powerful.
and walked away.
You can also start a negativity journal. Now,
Right.
what I'm saying about this is that whenever you notice, like have a special journal where you realize that you're dealing with the negative thoughts that you
Mhm.
have been carrying around for a long time. So, in that journal, practice writing out the negative thoughts and then maybe practice 5 reframes, you know, so that you can start. Because once we physically write it down, it becomes more real than if we just keep it going on around in our head. Also in that journaling practice of like having a negativity, and maybe it's a negativity and gratitude journal, because you could talk about your negative thought in the first part of your journal, do a couple of reframes, and then spend a couple of minutes writing what you're thankful for today or what you're grateful for today. Because that is going to do a bunch of things for you. It's going to give voice to the negative comments. It is going to reframe them for you and help you start thinking about them in a different way. And also, the gratitude is about not being overwhelmed. And so, practicing gratitude is a good way for reducing overwhelm, reducing stress, helping us realize what we have, and we're not focusing on what we don't have. And so, gratitude and the negativity and gratitude journal would be a really helpful way and a very powerful ritual for letting go of negativity. And then, of course, going to my favorite is meditation. There are several great meditation apps out there, from Calm to Insight Timer. And if you want to have a great visualization, looking in those apps or any of the other apps and saying negativity visualization, or, something that will help you release the negativity, a guided meditation of some sort.
Yeah, it's like restoring balance, right? Earlier we talked about how, all or nothing thinking or very extreme kinds of thoughts aren't necessarily true. So working to find that balance, really, there's to the yin, there's yang, right? So find it, whether it's through journaling or through meditation. I do love the idea of it being concrete, though, in a journal, because first of all, we can't write in our journal all day. We might be able to ruminate all day,
Hmm.
but we can't write all day. So
That's true.
let's
That's
get it out, write it on a piece of paper or write it in a journal, and then close the book and we can move on.
So we're just going to, though, I want to add a little addendum to this, though. Saying goodbye to negative thought patterns can feel uncomfortable, but so necessary. So, why are they uncomfortable?
They're uncomfortable because I'm going to get all sciencey on us again, but we've created a neural pathway, right? That's become entrenched over time. It's like the stream that goes down the side of the mountain. And eventually, if it goes down the side of the mountain long enough, it's going to curve into the rock. And it becomes very hard to read. If the water in this metaphor is our thoughts, it can be very hard to redirect the water because it's already so firmly ingrained into that pattern. So it takes deliberation to be able to move the stream of negative thinking and intentionality. And this is why we really encourage in Lotus Community Coaching and in Authentically Us mindfulness as part of the healing process. We can't fix or we can't redirect what we're not mindful of. Will
Hmm.
it feel uncomfortable? Yes. It may
Yes.
feel uncomfortable. Might feel awkward. You ever learned a new dance?
Yes.
New dance steps? Were you good at it at first?
God, no.
Right. But you practice a couple times and then all of a sudden your body gets a little bit of memory and then you're dancing like Ginger Rogers, right? So
Mhm.
it's the same thing when we're trying to retrain our brains to steer away from the negative thinking into a more balanced and positive frame of mind. That it's not just going to magically happen overnight. You need to actually do the work. This is what we mean when we say do the work, right? Mhm.
Absolutely. And, I encourage you, if you've really never thought about this subject before, grab a piece of paper or even on your phone and write a short letter to your negativity. What do you want to say to it? Maybe it's, thank you for trying to protect me, but I don't need you anymore. Or
Mhm.
maybe it's, you held me back for too long and I'm ready to move forward. Then rip it up, burn it up, delete it, just release it, because once those thoughts are out and on paper, they are able to start moving. Or when you're in community and you're talking about these things, then you get empathy, and then we're able to release our shame and guilt and all the negative feelings around it because we have this experience of shared common humanity of people saying, yeah, me too. So release it.
I have a quick hack for that if you can't write it down. It comes
Okay.
from acceptance and commitment therapy. So Dr. Stephen Hayes, who's the founder of it, encourages you when you find yourself becoming really fused to a negative thought pattern and you can't stop. Stop. Thank you, mind. Thank you, mind. Thank you for that thought. Thank you for that. Thank you, brain, for having that thought. And it's kind of like, stop. Thank you for giving me that thought. I'm sure you were trying to protect me, but now it's time to move on from that. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like saying thank you to it it acknowledges what you've just alluded to, is that sometimes this negative thinking has arisen to keep us safe
Mhm.
psychologically.
Mhm.
So thank you, brain. Thank you for trying to keep me safe. I got this now.
Mhm. I love that.
Yeah.
And in my own writing to my negativity, I think I would go along that lines, because it is, thank you for trying to keep helping me to stay safe, or trying to keep me safe, but I've got this right now. It's more about approaching our negativity like a loving, wise adult. Or as if we also can separate our negativity from ourselves, thinking of it as, how would you say to a friend if you heard a friend say something super negative? How would you turn it around for them so that it is not affecting them in such a deep way? Because we're often so much kinder to our friends than we are to
Mhm.
ourselves. So the nice thing is that you don't have to carry negativity with you forever. You can let it go. And that's why Barb and I are so passionate about community. It is so important to have support systems when you are trying to let go of negative behavior, or trying to forge a new path where you're not very clear on how you can move forward. So one of the things that we do through Lotus Community Coaching, or Authentically Us, is we provide community for people. We provide places for people so they can talk about these negative things. No one's going to shame them. No one is going to judge them, because half of us in those groups have had those same feelings. So we get it. We understand. And, as I have been working on Authentically Us for over and over again for, the last several months, when I came out, one of the first things I said to my sister, when the day after my ordination, when realized I had to go back into therapy again, I said, I need a soft place to land. And that is what I have created here. I realized that I have created places, and we've created places together, where we give people a soft place to land, because we all need that. We all need to have a place where we have community, we are affirmed, because that helps us rewrite our inner dialogue.
Can we just acknowledge how powerful it is to be in a community of people who are like us, who are having shared experiences, just to have them see us? just to say, I see you. I acknowledge, I see your suffering. I see you. I see you. And that alone can be enough to stop the negativity. And when we are in a community of people who are like us, we're having shared like similar experiences with, acknowledging that everybody's path is just a little bit different, but my goodness, do we see similar themes in the
Right.
women who we
Absolutely.
see. And when you can take your turn to extend compassion to somebody within the group,
Hmm.
ultimately that becomes internalized, and then you can start to do it for yourself. It is powerful. And I genuinely believe that this component of our three-pronged approach towards healing and coming out later in life, without the community, it's not the same. I
No,
don't
it's not.
think it's nearly as effective. The community is, I would say, well, I mean, I don't want to give any more weight to one of those three important factors than another, but my goodness, without community, it would not be
Well,
nearly as powerful.
and the reason why is because we need community no matter what, of people
Hmm.
going through the same experiences. So having community of other folks that are in the process of coming out, and having a queer community sometimes before you're ready to venture into the larger queer community
Hmm.
gives you confidence, gives you friends, gives you people who understand. It teaches you about the queer community because there's always people within our groups that are a couple of steps down the road further than other
Yes.
people. But at that point, they have the opportunity to teach that, something, even something small, like about if someone says a lesbian joke and the person goes, I don't get it. But the person that's maybe 2 months down the road heard the joke before and is able to explain it, so there are such a beauty in community because
Hmm.
what happens is that you come into the community and you may be somewhere within us, but you may be 3 steps ahead of somebody else,
Hmm.
maybe 5 steps behind somebody else, but you're
Hmm.
3 steps
Hmm.
ahead, and so you're able to provide and support and community and experience.
Hmm.
And by the way, we never measure how many steps ahead people are in our, yeah,
No,
it's
no.
just that people do that to themselves.
Yeah. Well, it really shows individuals within this group what is possible.
Hmm.
Like, you may come into this group figuring, my gosh, I'll never meet anyone. I'll never love again. That's that extreme language indicating not true thinking. I'll never meet anyone. I'll never love again. I'm too old to be doing this. How is this ever going to be possible for me? And then get into the group and you meet all kinds of women who are a couple of steps ahead of you, who are going on, who also at one point thought it was impossible and are going on to date, be in relationships, find love, and just joy as individuals as well, without context of others.
Right. And another thing too that's really, really helpful besides finding community is affirmations.
Hmm.
Saying things to yourself that um, are particularly helpful during a time of change and transition. So we're going to make up some affirmations from you right now off the top of our heads. So mine is going to be, I am enough.
Mine is going to be, you are well equipped to do this work.
I am changing things, not destroying things.
I'm going to go with my next one. It will be, I have control over my future.
I'm going to take one from scripture for those people who are of that bent. I am wonderfully and beautifully made.
Last one.
Hmm.
If I allow it, living my best gay life is freaking awesome.
It is freaking
It
awesome.
is.
So, I think a really good way to do this is to write affirmations. And also, whenever you hear kind words from friends or a mantra that you might hear in meditation, have something so that when the negativity creeps in, you're able to remind yourself that there are many beautiful parts of your life and of the person of who you are as a human being. So, What is one thing you're taking away from today's conversation? We'd love for you to reach out. If you're watching us on YouTube, let us know in the comments or messages. We love hearing from you. And also, we want to remind you to like and to review our podcast if you like it. Please follow us. It really, really helps to get it out there to other people. But also, what really, really helps is if you found this episode helpful, please share it with somebody who might need it today. So thank you so much, Barb Rowlandson. We are back on the path of positivity after a negative week last week. It was a tough one, but we're here. We're queer. Get used to it. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA plus stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com.